This is a brand new Wilier Adler. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? In today's video, I'll give you a quick review of what it's like, go through the frame details, how it compares to other bikes in the space, and go for a ride to see how it performs and handles as well. There will be a more in-depth review of the bike, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you want to see that. Now, the gravel category is really interesting because it has evolved and changed quite a bit in just 10 years. It really moved fast at pace. We now have two distinct camps or categories of gravel bike, in my opinion. At one end, we have racy bikes like the Wraith SLR, the 3T Exploro, the BMC Cayuse, the Canyon Grail, very fast, racy bikes designed for those pros who are doing 20 miles an hour for 200 miles, which is just crazy. And then at the other end, we have more mountain bike inspired adventure bike packing setups. So the emphasis on big tires, lots of mounts for bags and cages, more relaxed geometry, and a beefy frame that won't let you down in the middle of nowhere. And that is where the new Adlar fits. You could race it. I mean, it's not heavy and it's carbon and stiff, but definitely designed for the rider who isn't interested in racing or high speed, but is interested in going into the middle of nowhere, riding across the mountains, the deserts, the plains, the forests, with all their survival equipment, tent, stove, food, and everything you might need for a week-long adventure or a 3-week adventure. The only limitation really is your imagination. Right, let's look at the frame design in a bit more detail. And first off, it's a very chunky looking frame, isn't it? And does remind me more of a mountain bike. A big chunky head tube and down tube, very high at the front as well. Very small rear triangle and very oversized tube profiles as well. Definitely giving that mountain bike inspiration, clearly visible everywhere you look. Big oversized bottom bracket as well, and big tire clearance on this bike. The space for up to 55mm wide tyre on 700cc wheels. The frame is burly and oversized and beefed up and reinforced to carry a maximum of 35 kilograms of load. So loads of capacity for tents, sleeping equipment, extra food, all the stuff you might need for a very epic adventure. They developed their own rack system, front and rear, which actually attached to the through axles to increase the load capacity, which is very clever. And there are mounts all over the frame for extra bottles and cages. You can fit mud guards as well. There's a top tube mount. So loads of options to customize the bike for the adventure riding you're doing and the bike packing setup you want. And then to the geometry, which takes a big leaf out of the mountain bike book, which is something we're seeing a lot more on gravel bikes. There's the Merida Silex I reviewed last week. And what we're talking about is basically a slacker head angle. So on this bike, 70 degrees. Normally you expect 71 or 72 on a gravel bike, and road bikes are 73. So it's not much of a difference on paper, but in my experience, it does make a big difference out on the trail. Then we have a long reach as well, designed around a short stem and a very wide flared handlebar from Ritchie. So giving you that extra scope for really tackling steep, rocky terrain or riding high speed with load when the bike can be more of a handful to make the bike easier to ride, easier to manage in different situations. The bike has been designed around a very long fork, longer than you normally get on a gravel bike, and designed so that you can fit a 40mm travel suspension fork if you want. So the range comprises just 5 models, which is quite a small range really, and they're all built around the same 1100 gram carbon frame, no aluminium options to speak of, and it's priced from 3,700 euros with a GRX 11-speed group set and up to 5,400 euros with a SRAM Rival Access Explore group set. We have here, or I have here, shall I say, the brand new Shimano GRX 12-speed 1x setup, which I have reviewed previously. You can see that video linked above and down below in case you missed it. And this bike is then built up with Miele aluminium wheels, the company's own in-house stem, seat post, and a Pro Logo saddle and a Ritchie handlebar. And the weight for the bike, as you see it, without pedals, but with 2 cages fitted, is 9.8 kilograms. Right, so now you know everything you need to know about the brand new Wilier Adler. All that remains is to see how it rides. So let's go for a spin and find out. Right, okay, you join me a few miles into my ride, deep in the woods now, in the forest. And it's only like 3 o'clock, but it's getting dark already. Hopefully it's not too dark on the camera. So the road miles to get here, because my ride started on a tarmac, went by nicely, really. These tyres from Pirelli do roll fast on the road. Got a nice smooth centre section. And even though I'm running 21 PSI front to rear, they roll along the road just fine. Good gear range from a GRX 12 speed, and it all felt good. The only thing that felt odd about the bike is how high the front is. The handlebars are really lofty compared to a racy gravel bike like the Canyon Grail, for example, and does remind me of the Wilier Adler I reviewed last week. Link to that video above in case you missed it. So quite a high front end, feels a bit odd at first, but as soon as you get off road, it's all fine. You've got fantastic control on the descents I've done so far. Really nice, stable setup. That slack head angle, the long wheelbase, the short stem, and the wide, shallow flared drop handlebar should give you ample control to make good progress on any sort of technical descent, and definitely more at home the rougher and rowdier it gets compared to my Specialized Crux and that Canyon Grail and any other racy gravel bike where the head angle is steeper, the front end is much lower, and your weight is being pitched over the front of the bike. Whereas this, the steeper it gets, the better it handles. Your weight is pushed high and further back behind the bike, so you can take more speed into those descents and have more confidence to carry speed through the corners. So it really does work when you are riding rough trails, which today I'm riding kind of tame mountain bike trails. So a bit overkill for a normal gravel bike, but ideal for this bike really. But boy oh boy, is it muddy today, is it ever. We've had so much rain over the last few days, weeks, months, and in fact the whole year. Been a very wet year, so the trails are very muddy here in the Cotswolds. So I slapped on some mud guards for the bike from R-Saver to try them out front and rear. Hopefully keep some of the mud off, although I still got a fair smattering on my tight mud guards. Yes or no? Let me know down below. So let's crack on, find some good trails to put the bike through its paces for its first ride. So I'm really impressed with the handling of the bike so far. The geometry and the handlebar really coming to their own on rough tracks, steep descents, single track trails. The sort of place where even my Specialized Crux does feel a bit jittery and a bit sketchy. This bike feels planted and pretty stable really. And I think that's good for two reasons. If you're newer to gravel and you don't have a lot of off-road experience, then this bike will definitely look after you more than a road bike, gravel bike. And if you are quite experienced riding off-road, this bike will let you carry more speed and therefore have more fun on any rough trails. And you definitely ride mountain bike trails, tame mountain bike trails, where you might be better off on a hardtail. This bike is making good progress on those sort of trails. And of course, it's faster on the road when you've got to link all trails together. One potential gripe, I know some people will have this bike, it's a press fit bottom bracket and not a threaded bottom bracket, and I get that, but for this sort of bike you might understandably want the easier maintenance and low risk of anything going wrong that you get with threaded bottom brackets. I didn't mention in my preview a bit earlier that the bike has a regular round 27.2mm seat post, so you can fit a dropper, a suspension seat post, or another carbon seat post if you want. This one's aluminium I think, so a carbon upgrade could be good. But comfort is pretty good actually from the bike. It's doing a good job of smoothing out the rougher trails. These big tyres help of course, running super low pressures. It's definitely a smoother bike so far, based on one ride admittedly, than that Wilier Adler I rode last week. This Ritchie handlebar does look a bit wild compared to a conventional handlebar. and you have to ride it to get your head around it. But when you are riding in the woods, it really does work extremely well. Because the front's so high and the drops are so shallow, you can actually use the drops a lot more, and they're nice and wide and flared, so you have a lot of control, a lot of leverage through corners. But there is a bit of a gripe: tyres. So let me pull over and talk about rubber. Right, let's talk tyres. Now, if I was riding this bike in the summer, these tyres from Pirelli would be just fine. But today it's very, very muddy, as you can probably tell. And the tyres are mostly fine, apart from when you hit a patch of mud and they lose all control. And I've had a few sketchy moments when a bike's gone left and I've gone right. And this is a real challenge for bike manufacturers to fit a tyre to a bike like this. They can work everywhere for everyone in all conditions. But that said, these tyres are like buying a Land Rover with slick road tyres. So a tyre with a more aggressive, deeper tread pattern would definitely benefit the bike, and I don't think slow it down on the road or dry stuff that much. These do ride very well on the road and hard pack if you have that sort of riding on your doorstep, but if you have mud, you might want to save a few quid for some better tyres for winter riding. Save these for the summer. And what do you think of my mud guards? Trying these new Arse Saver ones. They seem to be helping a bit, but I'm still pretty muddy, but maybe not as muddy. And let's show you the clearance on the bike. It's not bad actually. So mud clearance on the bike is pretty good actually. It's not too bad down by the rear tyre there and up by the seat tube. Yeah, it's clearing okay. Not clogging just yet, but pretty muddy. So first impressions are good. There will be a full review coming very soon. I do plan to do something interesting with this and that Merida Silex, perhaps compare the two in a shootout. Let me know what you think of that by leaving a comment down below. Anyway, I'll leave you with a video link to the best gravel bikes available right now. Click the video up there to watch that. And of course, subscribe to the channel by hitting the button down here. But that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again very soon.